Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Richelieu, what they call their EL1030 small commercial lever privacy set. Let's take it out of the box and take a look at it. I've not seen a Richelieu privacy set before. T-strike and a ANSI 4 7/8 strike. A 2 3/4 inch and 1/8 wide spring latch. We have the lock itself. Smart little lever. I don't know that it's handicap compliant. It may be. We'll check. Cylindrical lock construction. It is indeed a privacy set. Locked on the outside, unlocked on the inside. When we push that retractor in, it pops the button. The question becomes is what happens when the latch is pushed in. Yeah, that's good. It's what you want. When the latch is pushed in, it pops the button out. Meaning that someone's in the bathroom, they are exiting, they open the door, they push the button, then pull the door closed. It doesn't automatically lock someone out. You're going to get a dust box, at least for the 2 3/4 T-strike. You're going to get your screw package. Looks like there is optional through bolt holes here. Hopefully more screws than needed. Lots of screws there. And then, of course, a pin tool for removing the trim. Then installation instructions. So, first, by first glance, this is a, just a regular little doodad that you're going to use on some sort of a commercial application, light-duty commercial, I would say. Let's just kind of get curious over it. Let's remove the inside lever. And you'll need that little tool for doing that, or a tool just like it. Depressing that, there's a tab down there that's spring assisted. That spring is right there. It's a little lever insert that needs to go back in the lever. One way or another. I think it's not seating very well. Oh, of course, because that would be because I had it inside backwards. I was trying to put it in the wrong way. That only took an hour. So this little filler for the back of the cylinder needs to fit in just like that. Okay, so we've got that inside lever off. At this point, your interior assembly will come off. A little spring-loaded tang that's here, that's going to need to be depressed to get this exterior rosette, the interior rosette off, so that you can pry the outside the interior rose off of the mounting plate, is what I'm driving at. A little bit easier to do it when it's on the door. Okay, so there's your inner rose. Appears to be mostly made of stainless steel, that mounting plate. And then at this point, there's not a lot else to do. It's probably already set from the factory at 1 3/4 door thickness. You're going to thread that rose in and out to accommodate your thickness. I don't see any gauge on here as to them telling us what we need. And now that I've spun it several times, we'll have to determine where that needs to be on the installation instructions. That outside mounting plate will have a tang or a prong here and here. That's meant to go in at 9 and 3 o'clock, okay, or horizontally, as you can hopefully kind of see there. If it's a steel door, your steel door will have a couple little semi, half circle cutouts in that area. So it's a 2 3/4 back set, 2 1/8 inch hole most certainly. Latch bolt would go in first. The lock chassis would go in. You would then bring your mounting plate up next, and it has to be installed with the holes vertically so that the screws can get down into the tapped holes that are here. Okay, then at that point you will snap your rosette on with that little notch to go over that spring-loaded retainer that's there. Then you'll just push your lever on, and you'll need the tool to get it back on. When I let that go down, it stops because it's hitting that spring-loaded tab. You would depress that and then push it the rest of the way down. So at this point, because I'm familiar with this generic style construction of a lever, let's take some dimensional properties of the lock, and then we'll switch to the screen view where we can take a look at the supporting documents. The center of the lever to the outside of the lever looks like it's about 3.5. It looks like it returns back pretty close to the face of the door. Looks like it's half of an inch, which is what I would expect it to be handicap compliant. The lever's a little short, but I have a feeling this is completely handicap compliant. We do have that 2 3/4 latch bolt. There's nowhere on here that it measures 2 3/4. I can look at this and say, yep, that's 2 3/4. It's going to measure about 1 3/4 inches from the faceplate to the edge of the barrel. It's generally what that measures, because you then add 1 inch, half of 2 1/8 to get to 2 3/4. That's 1 1/8 wide. That is 2 1/4 tall. Okay. Self-lubricating sort of latch that's here. It's a spring latch. That means there's no deadlocking tab back here. You'll see spring latches common on those non-keyed locks. Your passages, your privacies, the derivatives of those locks. A couple of strike plates we showed earlier. Diameter of the rose first, about 2 15/16. This is what's called a T-strike. If you use your imagination, you can see why we would call it a T-strike. It'll be 2 3/4 tall. The overall width, about 1 3/4 inches. That's not the width of the strike, though. Strikes are measured from the center line of the screw hole to the edge of the lip. 1 1/4 inches is about what you're going to see as standard. It's almost a one-size-fits-all dimension. This is a 4 7/8 strike. That's for use on a hollow metal frame. That's prep for a 4 7/8 strike. That's going to be about 1 7/8 inches, but then again, you're going to be about 1 1/4 inches. This might be closer to 1 5/16 on that. Lip length is what it's called. The center line of the hole to the edge of the lip is the lip length, is the bottom line. It has a nice feature here with this returned back metal, and that assists in the latch bolt being retracted when you are, because you're not only rotating the lever, you are kind of pushing or pulling at the same time. So this turned back material that you see here is a good feature of strike plates, because it does assist in the latch bolt coming back out of the hole versus those that don't have it. Just a little end like this can serve as a less reasonable amount of surface area to get a latch bolt to cooperate very well. Then there's the dust box. This dust box is, they only have one for the 2 3/4 strike. And you're definitely going to want to install it if you're using this. You don't want the particulate of the wall construction to encroach into the space, the living space. So clean that off. Gives you a nice, speaking of clean, gives you a nice clean look as well. You don't see the rough cut. Dust boxes are available for 4 7/8 strikes. We can get those for you in metal or plastic. Richelieu just doesn't include one. Now this screw pack I'm awfully interested to look at, and we're probably going to need to refer to the installation instructions when we dive into it. You know that you're going to have 2 screws for the 4 7/8 strike. We can eliminate those. Those are 1224 flat undercut head combination machine and wood screws. We know that we're going to have 2 more screws for the latch and the 2 3/4 T-strike. Well, they've included 2 for each, and they're these exceptionally long, unnecessarily long screws for doing that. The logic would be it'll bite through much more of the door, obviously, and the frame if you're installing that T-strike. So I'd prefer them not to be so long, but it's not the end of the world. You just have to pre-drill the hole appropriately for the length of the screw. You don't want to split the edge of anything. I don't know if this is fire rated, but I heavily suspect that it is because the latch bolt, meaning you don't want to split anything. It's a fire rated door. You don't want to ruin the door by not pre-drilling the right size hole. And the fact that the latch bolt bears a label tells me that this is a listed product appropriate for use on a fire rated assembly. Okay, so that's a good sign. There are a couple of these little doodads here that I'm not sure what those are just yet. I have my suspicion, but I can't be positive. We'll take a look at what those are. We'll have to refer to the installation instructions. We do have the two machine screws to hold the lock body together from the plate itself through the hole down into these holes here and here that are clearly drilled and tapped to receive that. Okay. You know, I'm thinking what's going to happen here with those two little unknown screws is that they are probably meant they're probably meant to fit inside of these two little holes to go into a lever through bolt prep. If you have a small hole drilled at 12 and 6, that will help prevent the anti-rotation of the trim. That's my heavy suspicion in terms of where those are going to end up going. Then there are these other two screws, these small, like maybe number 6 panhead screws, maybe a number 5. I have no idea where these go. So the installation instructions are included, and they are linked to down below this video as well, and it's here where we will determine exactly where those mystery screws go, and then of course confirm that I've concluded correctly in everything. There should be a template here as well, and there is. Okay. The entire first page is like all other installation instructions. Here's what's in the box. Then the next part of that is here's how to prep the door, and then the rest of it is generally the template and putting the thing together thing. Yeah, I see where they're using those parts. Let's switch to the screen view and take a look at that. Okay, so this is indeed the item that we're working on here. Let's take a look at the extended description information first. Latch bolt is activated by lever either side, except when inside push button locks the outside lever. Outside lever permits emergency unlocking. It does. The outside lever has a slot in that outside little button here that will allow you to get that open. It would be by rotating it. 2 3/4 latch, 2 1/4 by 1 1/8. 1/2-inch latch throw. That is actually very important to know that. They do list it as fire rated. I don't see it as handicap compliant. We'll dive into that further. But the reason 1/2-inch latch throw is important is because the edge of your fire rated door will say min latch throw or minimum latch throw. And you need to make sure it doesn't say something like 3/4 inch, which is possible on double doors. Probably unlikely to have a privacy set on a double door. So be mindful of that. It's a 1/2-inch latch throw. Strike, stainless steel standard T-strike. This had a 4 7/8 in the box. That's beyond what's indicated in the extended description here. Cylinder case is steel zinc dichromate plated. It certainly appears to be that, absolutely. Die-cast levers made of zinc die-cast, which is good. It'll give you a nice finish. It's heavy, you know, it's dense. That rose, they say 3-inch. I think we measured it slightly less. Up to 3 hour. It's a grade 2 lock. That means it's passed a 500,000 cycle test. There's nothing to say that this lock wouldn't run 5 million cycles. It's just, it's been tested to a 500,000, and that's the bottom line. Doesn't mean it won't break after 100 cycles if it's vandalized and abused, but nonetheless, it's rated for 500,000 cycles. And this is lock set type. We're going to correct that right here and now. Passage, let's confirm that we've corrected that. Yep, privacy set. Lever, die-cast zinc again, stainless steel finish. This will work on doors 1 3/8 to 1 3/4. I have a feeling it'll probably go thicker than that. Let's look at the product brochure first. Okay, so this product brochure, I'm not sure who Onward is. Richelieu, is a major, I believe that they are, I'm quite sure that they're a Canadian company, a very epic size company that gets into a lot of different things when it comes to residential hardware. Whoever Onward is must be who manufactures the locks that Richelieu distributes. Okay, we're looking at the EM1030 is what they call it, and that is indeed, well, they had an EL1042 on their box. Yeah, there is no 1042 here. EM1030 is what Richelieu is close to calling it. It's an EL1030. It does not actually appear to this does not appear to be the same lock anyway. Here we go. Yeah, it's the smaller petites, small levers. Entrance, privacy, and passage is what it's available in. Dimensional properties are here. Knob locks, some basic deadbolts. Commercial grade material. Still grade 2, but going to be larger levers with through bolts. I wouldn't necessarily hesitate in using this product. It seems like a nice lock. But, at the end of the day, there's no shortage of where to buy imported, commercial grade builders hardware from. So that's your product brochure. Now let's dive into the installation instructions. And clearly, these are for a knob. Okay, now by the time you're seeing this, the proper installation instructions will be located there, and here they are. We've scanned them in. So it starts off with an accounting of what parts you have. And, if you recall our parts, it's simple. We've got the outside here. This is a privacy function, so there's no key happening here. But the inside mounting plate, your inside rows, those 2 machine screws that will go right into this area here. But they don't, in this area, mention what is happening with the other little mystery bolts. Tools required for a new installation would be a hole saw and a drill bit of 1-inch diameter, and then a 13/64. That's going to be for the 13/64. That's obviously going to be for pre-drilling your holes for the latch and for the strike, or at least for the T-strike. A chisel. And if you're doing a new installation, a retrofit, just do a. You won't need anything but a screwdriver. You're going to need that emergency tool that's going to come with it, though. Pardon me, not an emergency tool. You're going to need the pin release tool. We're not going to go into a conversation of how to mortise the door. If you get this lock in your hands and you want to discuss how to prep the door, feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to walk you through the steps of how to mortise the door properly. Now, they're calling out these holes at 12 and 6. And that's my suspicion of where those little pins are going to go. So let's get down through the area where they talk about finishing the mortising, but then disassembling the lock as we had demonstrated earlier. Lever comes off. Depress the spring attached to inside rows, which is here, and you'll be able to separate those 2 parts once the inside lever is off. So in terms of adjusting for door thickness, the center of the retracting hub needs to be in the center of the thickness of the door, as we see here. So as you get the latch bolt's already in the door at this point, but you can take the entire chassis and hold it up to the door and literally spin that outside rose to the point where you can then hold it on the door and see if you are centered in the door thickness. Okay, centered from the height and centered in the thickness of the door. Very important that when you install the latch bolt, it is installed how they're showing here. The black portion, or the heavy black portion here, is literally this retractor hub, and this is the T-shaped slide that's coming out of the end of the latch bolt. There is an important feature to this that I'll demonstrate why it operates as that latch. When you depress the latch bolt, it forces the button to pop back out. It's because in the slide there's another shoulder on either side. There's a shoulder here that prevents this just from sliding without taking the retractor with you. Okay, so latch bolt is in. Yeah, I see what they're doing. So, very importantly, when you drill the door, you definitely want to drill the 7/32 of an inch hole. Now, they show them coming, up here they indicate that you're to drill those two 7/32 holes on the back side of door face through guide on template. So what that means to me is you only drill them on one side of the door, which will be the secured side or the push button side, not the exterior where you would be locked out, assuming the door swings in. Not that it has to, but if it was an in-swing door into the bathroom or bedroom, or any room that you needed privacy, these two little holes would be on the interior side only. And that's because what they're showing us here, after you get the latch bolt in, the exterior portion can come through, but then take those two little through bolt pins and set them into those 7/32 hole. And they didn't mention 7/32 up here on the drill bit that you would need, but you'll definitely need that. And what will happen is they will sit inside of the door, and then that little shoulder that they have happening here will sit into that recessed area, and then the little nib will come right through the hole. And that's going to help with anti-rotation. As you put tremendous amounts of force on the lock, you can really get the chassis to move in a circular fashion, and those pins will help prevent that. And that is exactly what those are for. Now we know. Now, the only other mystery is what those... Oh, I see what they're doing here. I see. Okay, so what they're saying, those two small screws that I didn't know what they were, apparently you're going to use those on a wood door. So if you have a wood door, you won't drill these holes, and you'll use those small screws. You'll have a bolt here, and a bolt here, and then these two small screws will go here into that area, but you won't drill a hole. If it's a metal door, apparently, that's where they want you to drill the 7/32 holes and use the removable through bolts to install. So that's the installation instructions. That's what they're saying. And if you're dealing with a fire-rated door, you'll need to install it according to the installation instructions. Because that's what makes it a fire-rated, a listed and labeled product that is listed. According to the installation instructions is what the criteria is that we have to meet when installing hardware on fire-rated doors. What do the installation instructions tell us to do and how to do it? That's what we have to do. Before assembling the lock with installing screws, slightly raise the lever and then tighten the screw. This will ensure the lever is in its proper horizontal position. Okay, I mean, you want to tighten the screws. You don't want anything to bind. You want it to work correctly. Obviously, they have found that putting a little preload, so to speak, on the lever in an upward fashion suits this lock and its temperament best. Finally, so the mounting plate will go on 2 machine screws. You'll either have prepped these through bolts, or if it's a wood door, you'll drill these holes for the 2 smaller screws. Then finally, you'll install your inside lever, and you will need the tool that's there. Here's your template. They have a 2 3/8 reference here. This is the edge of the door. 1 3/4, 45 millimeter. Okay. I don't see why they want holes at 9 and 12 on this. There are those prongs that are there. If it's a steel door, you would need to drill those relief holes for those prongs to fit into. That aren't shown really in these installation instructions anywhere. No, I don't. Those prongs were at 12 and 6. I don't understand why they want these holes at 9 and 3. You know, depending on where you install the exterior rosette. You know, if it's a wood door, you're really not going to deal with that. However, if it's a metal door that doesn't have those little semicircles, you would. So the prongs that are on the edge, or that are on the exterior trim, that are attached to that threaded rose assembly, you would indeed position them here. And now that I study this clearly, for metal doors, if you don't have that little semicircle, you will need to relieve that hole, because that prong is not going to seat itself into the face of a commercial steel door. That's for sure. Even a residential clad door, you'll need to create an area to receive those little prongs as they're shown here. And then again, these holes at 12 and 6, that would be the inside only. Be no reason to have them on the outside. You can drill them, but there'd be no reason to have them on the outside only, or on the outside. All right, let's switch back to the camera view and wrap up this video. Okay, now to wrap up the video, those prongs, as I was saying, you know, you're going to thread that in and out so that you're centered in the door, and then obviously make sure that those prongs on the outside are at the 12 and 3 o'clock position. So, you know, when you study it, you'll have exterior holes at 3 and 9. Then on the interior, you'll have them at 12 and 6. A bit odd, but that's how this is being put together. Admittedly, you don't have to install those interior posts. I would dissuade you from considering that. But for sure, on the outside, you're going to have to contend with those prongs, because as you can see, they poke up just above the rose. So you'll have to do something about that. I don't suggest that you bend them back, but to accommodate them. Okay. So that'll look like this for a metal door, or it's going to look like that for a wood door. And then, of course, you're certainly going to have those machine screws there. Top and bottom is what that'll look like. One last glance at this. Oh, yes, the latch bolt. That little shoulder there is what allows that button to pop back out. It's amazing how many locks don't operate that way. How many commercial quality, domestic manufactured locks don't work that way. They all should. There would really never be a reason to lock and then pull the door closed behind you. I mean, if someone says, yeah, leave the room and lock it behind you, I suppose, but that's pretty unusual. You definitely want it to unlock. You don't want unintended lockouts. In terms of that emergency release, you can probably use the head of the pin tool to do that. Yeah, that takes some rotation. I actually bent the end of the tool a little bit doing it, but you will need to rotate that. Not a problem there. That will, of course, release it. Anything else on the installation instructions to call to your attention? No. Should be fairly easy to install. It's a neat little residential lock, is what I would call it. It has good spring action. You know, I don't think that you'll have too much trouble with this. Now, there is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Richelieu products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Now, the name Richelieu is quite synonymous with hardware in many different arenas. They have a tremendous amount of residential hardware, like cabinet drawer pulls and knobs. They get into timbre boards. So if you have a roll-up top desk with a timbre board, they make all that material available to the public. The timbre slats themselves, the hardware, the track on the sides, they custom manufacture that material. A variety of options. That link below this video to the manufacturer's page will allow you to get to the manufacturer's page within the site, from where you can then look at all the Richelieu products that we sell, but also to the manufacturer's product catalog, which is the same link as their website. And that's because Richelieu has so many different product catalogs, it's completely impractical to actually load product catalogs into our site for them, so you get back to their site to look at their vast offering of material. Generally good quality material in terms of it being backed by good quality people, very much interested in doing a good job. In fact, I've done some hardware, some pull handles with Richelieu, and you know, sometimes you have a client who says, here's what I want. Okay, architects, you know, us as distributors and contractors, we all say things about architects, and I'm sure architects have their secret closed door, you know, gripe sessions about us, distributors, contractors. But this client literally said, here's what I want, and it literally doesn't exist. The handle from Richelieu existed, but the way in which they wanted it mounted, literally didn't exist in that application. So I knew what was going to happen. I was going to call Richelieu, and you know, a variant of a product is in here in this company as well. General customer service is not capable of answering technical questions because that's not their area of expertise. Their area of expertise is something that technical support can't do, because that's not their area of expertise. But I spoke to the customer service rep, explained what I needed, and they got me in touch with the person who absolutely could do it. So working with a very, very, very exceptional person at Richelieu allowed me to figure out what was needed to be able to say to the client, don't you worry about it. We have you covered on something that doesn't exist. And the basically the inside story on that was the client wanted them installed on back-to-back pull handles installed on exceptionally thick doors, like 3-inch thick doors. And Richelieu says, impossible, you can't do that. They're only for half-inch glass. You cannot do that. Okay. The bottom line is, I understand what it takes to put two pull handles together. You've got a mounting bolt, you've got maybe a set screw, you've got an adapter screw, you've got a couple of bushings or washers. The person on the inside, and the other problem was it's Richelieu, which means it's metric. Okay, so, you know, I didn't, you know, Imperial is the system that I was taught in school. And it was funny because the tech support person at Richelieu, who was really an outside rep, but knew the people's shoulders to tap, they didn't speak metric either. But, okay, it's not a big deal, of course. But we were able to find out, we were able to find out the thread type. That thread type, and then the shape of the bolt. They were able to give me a technical drawing where I then went to an industrial hardware supply and just got longer bolts, so it worked. But without having that access to a qualified person who not only was qualified, but someone who was engaged, who was behaving like a full partner in the problem resolution. Because I could have gone back to the client and said, they don't make it. Pick another pull handle. I have these many vendors for you to pick from, for you to choose from. But when you're dealing with a client, you want to avoid stirring the pot unless it's necessary. And if I was able to accomplish precisely what they had asked for, when I knew that no one else could, because it doesn't exist, or even worse, they found another distributor who had the same moxie, not that it's me, or found someone at Richelieu with that level of moxie. You want to protect your clients by doing the best job you can, and the people at Richelieu absolutely created that environment for total success. So, at the end of the day, you can buy this imported lock from anyone. You can buy an imported lock anywhere, anyone, anytime. But you cannot buy from anyone, anywhere, anytime that inside technical support. Sorry about the, diversion story of the Richelieu, but it's worth mentioning. Any questions on this EL1042? EL1030? Richelieu Lever Privacy or any other Richelieu product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.